So as I sit here on this beautiful beach, enjoying nature, the only thing I can think about is how none of you guys understand what stabilization is. And this video is about how stabilization is a tool. It is not talent. And you're still gonna suck just as much with stabilization as you will without it. So first of all, I want to talk about the people who seem to think that not using stabilization somehow indicates a greater amount of talent. Stabilization is just visually pleasing. It's the way your brain likes to process imagery. If you think about when you walk, I was just walking on the beach right now, I'm all sweaty. When you walk down the beach, you don't see in your mind this jittery, step-by-step, shaky image. Even though the light that's reaching your eyeballs is exactly that. Your brain does processing. Your brain does stabilization. Your brain stabilizes the image when you move. So it's not... To have things stable is just the way our brains like to see things. And that's why when people make movies, they almost always stabilize the image. They use big gimbals, so as they walk, the gimbal doesn't shake. The camera doesn't shake. It's very distracting if they don't do that. The only type of films that do not use those types of stabilization is when that's exactly the whole point of the film. Think of something like the Blair Witch Project, where they're trying to make it shaky handheld footage. And that's all you can see, shaky handheld footage. You don't really see what they're recording. And if your footage is shaky, that's what happens. You don't really see what you're recording. That beautiful thing you're recording or the flight you're doing, you don't see that. The brain gets distracted by all the little shaking. At the same time, stabilizing something is not going to make you any more talented. It can make something look nice. And a lot of people confuse production value with talent. And that's kind of a problem in this hobby because, so many of us, myself included, are not video professionals. And we're learning this stuff on the fly. But I wanted to dispel some pretty common myths, okay? So, for example, I was in a chat the other day and someone posted a freestyle video and another, it's a relatively new pilot posted it, and another relatively new pilot said, "Oh, wow, is that stabilized?" And the other guy said, no, it's pure talent. The video itself didn't even look stabilized, like someone else commented in the chat. It was shaky during the spots where it should be smooth, and then the flippity-floppity parts weren't distorted by stabilization. That looked nice, But basically, it looked pretty good. That was kind of the point. And the other new pilot was just identifying, I like this video with, was it stabilized, or and stabilization is just not magical. It's not going to teach you how to do those tricks that guy did, and it's certainly not difficult to fly a drone smooth and slow and not shaky, like some people posting raw videos as if that helps. There certainly is a point to it in freestyle when you're doing a series of tricks and you want to show the talent without a lot of cuts. For example, anyone can like those YouTube tricks where they try to shoot a basket 1,000,000 times and take the one cut that looks good. Anyone can do that. So that's why obviously people prefer for freestyle videos to evaluate talent, a full flight, for example. But stabilization isn't going to change how talented the pilot looks. It's really about post-production being able to make people look so much better. So when people post raw videos, a lot of times they're just trying to focus on their flying talent and not their editing and video talent. So it makes sense. Don't get me wrong. Raw video, there's a point to it. But it doesn't make any sense, for example, to shoot cinematic video raw unless that's your entire point. Like, look how shaky this drone is. Like, I can't tune it, for example. Yeah, shoot that raw. You don't want to post that stabilized. But if you're recording a cinematic shot and you're not stabilizing the little vibrations of the camera, which have nothing whatsoever to do with skill, for example, you could fly the drone absolutely perfectly and have jello. Jello is something that stabilization can get rid of. Jello is not a talent, flying with and without Jello. So anyway, if you're making a cinematic shot, of a beautiful place like this, it absolutely makes sense to stabilize. It doesn't make sense not to. So anyway, once again, stabilization is not some magical talent pill. You're just going to suck just as much as you do now, or be just as good as you are now with or without it. It's something that can make certain things look better. And people who, are being macho about it and saying, I fly pure talent without it, you guys sound really dumb, and you should stop. That was my point. A couple of follow-up things to say. One, production value is talent. It's just a different type of talent than flying, obviously. I want to make that clear. I learned a lot from very talented people in video making. So if you're making videos for other people, you should stabilize it if you want it to look better. If you're deliberately trying to show what your flight looks like without stabilization, that's fine. But if you're bragging about it, just know that it sounds really dumb. All you're taking is saying, hey, look, my video looks a little more shaky. That doesn't make you any more talented than you would be if your video looked better. It just means you have less production value, that's all. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not something to brag about, unfortunately, like people very often in this hobby think it is. All right, guys, don't get your feelings hurt. Ego is a fragile thing in this hobby, and almost every conversation you have in this hobby is going to involve a great deal of ego. People can barely say anything about flying drones without trying to find some way to feel better about themselves, which, come on, man, we all like to feel better. I'm not trying to pretend like I'm this magical human being that's not interested in boasting and feeling special and whatnot. We all like to feel special, and some of us just do it in dumber ways than others, I guess. And this is kind of a video about trying to avoid some of the dumb ways to feel special in drone flying about stabilization. There's, like I said, there's a lot of ways. Some pilots feel better that they fly acro versus stabilized, that they race versus freestyle, or freestyle versus race. A lot of us have, ego involved. Everyone, you can't shed the ego. It's hard to. So there's a lot of topics in, drone racing where you end up with a lot of bullshit that's fed by kind of ego management. And stabilization is one of them, and we're going to talk about this. So let's not get our knickers in a twist here. We're all just people having fun with toys, and I'll be the first to say that I'm being opinionated, and this is just my opinion. Feel free to ignore. Obviously I forgot to talk about people who use the tool badly. There's a lot of people who do bad stabilization. I do a lot of bad stabilization, especially in the beginning when I first started using it. The stabilization, for example, in Final Cut Pro was just terrible. In fact, I probably didn't end up posting any of it because it was so terrible, and that, so bad that even my untrained eye could recognize it. So there's definitely a lot of bad stabilization out there, just like there's a lot of, bad auto-tune or bad CGI out there. I think this is an incredibly similar argument to the people who say, I hate CGI, not realizing that good CGI is the stuff they don't notice. They're basically saying, I hate bad CGI, because with their unsophisticated eye, they're just only seeing the bad stuff. These little critters are loud, aren't they? I don't know if you guys can hear me, but, auto-tune, CGI, these are all just tools. And when people say, I hate auto-tune, they're basically saying they hate bad uses of auto-tune, because auto-tune's in literally every single song that they listen to these days, every single one. 99% of people, when they say I don't like auto-tune, are saying I don't like bad uses of auto-tune, because they don't know how to differentiate between good uses and bad uses. So whenever they think of auto-tune, whenever they notice it, it's bad, and they only notice it when it's bad. Similarly, with CGI, some people say in movies they don't like CGI. there's CGI in every single movie. They're basically saying they don't like bad CGI. And same with stabilization. It's a tool. It's not talent. And, you know, a ton of people are going to use it wrong. A ton of people are going to pretend like it's talent when it's not. And let's just treat it for what it is. It's a tool. If it makes your video look better, use it. If it doesn't, don't. If you don't want to use it, even if it could make your video look better, don't. Don't pretend like that makes you a better pilot either, because it doesn't. Lastly, let's just talk about some kind of common ways it can be used and not used. For example, I never stabilize my racing footage. I just don't think it makes sense. I'm trying to see the line that I fly more than I am trying to make beautiful footage with racing. With freestyle footage, I usually don't do that much freestyle, mainly because it's not visually interesting to almost anyone else other than pilots, and even then, only the pilot that made it, it's interesting to them. But yeah, all the flipping and flopping, I think it's fun, but I just don't post videos of that because I don't think it's very visually interesting to anyone else other than the pilot who made it. But anyway, freestyle is, I think, something that does not lend itself very well to stabilization. Sharp movements, flippity-floppities, don't stabilize well. Cinematic footage is, you know, where it's almost ridiculous not to stabilize it. You know, if you're trying to make something cinematic, the very definition of that is pretty much, by definition, stabilized, unless that's the entire look you're going for, unstabilized footage. So anyway, I'm sure I've ruffled some feathers, so I just want to just show you guys that, you know, I'm a equally harsh a critic of myself, you know. I suck as a pilot. Every day I fly, I remind myself, you know, sometimes it feels like I'm learning to fly every time I pick up the sticks. I'm not very good of a video maker either. But that just kind of talks to the general level of quality we have. A lot of us in this hobby aren't very good at flying and aren't very good at video like me. And if I can notice these things, that means they're kind of very, very glaring things for people who actually are good at, you know, videography. All right, and Rant. My wife's gonna come from breakfast and gotta get going. Gotta work today at the beach, but I'm not on vacation. But yeah, sorry if I ruffled any feathers. You know, at the end of the day, this is just a hobby. It doesn't matter if your video is crap or not. If you have fun, who cares? I'm gonna make another video at some point about if you're making videos for other people and you're looking for validation, you're gonna have a bad time. So, you know, if you enjoy what you do, who cares what I think or what anyone thinks? That's the most important thing.